Hello. Today I'm going to talk to you about how you can deliver large-scale, transformative, innovative, and adaptive digital architectures to drive your customer transformation journey. We're going to go through and talk a little bit about my background and give you an introduction to myself. I'll frame up digital transformation in the context of today's conversation. And then at the heart of digital transformation for most companies is the customer. So I'll spend some time and talk to you about customer centricity and put some context around why a customer is central to digital transformation. I'll then take you through the current technology landscape and give you a retrospective about the vectors of change that brought most of us in our current organizations and technology stacks to where we are. And then I'll take you forward into the future to the heart of what this conversation is about by talking about something I call the digitally meshed enterprise. So let's get started. I'm Neil Marini. I've spent more than 2 decades in technology and the last 10 years leading, transforming, serving teams to really open up some of our legacy applications that have existed for decades to be able to do business and serve the customer in new ways. And along that journey has been coaching and building teams, implementing technology patterns, really starting to look at systems and how to orient them more towards fast-paced change and deliver capabilities on top of those systems, and also bring in practices that allow teams to work in smaller units, tightly coupled with the business in delivery of customer experience solutions, but also understanding that those teams partner in a larger ecosystem and being able to do that efficiently at scale. So as I think about digital transformation, and a lot of us think about digital transformation, really, it is about taking all of the activities that occur in an enterprise that is focused on building products and product catalogs and the associated customer experiences that enable customers to get the best value out of those products through the life cycle, and do that in ways that really take the customer experience in a positive direction for the customer and for the company. So as an example, a customer journey may start off by a customer wanting your product or wanting a product like the product your company builds, learning about that product, right? And along the way, there are multiple interactions. These phases occur over time. They may or may not be contiguous, and they may or may not happen in the same channel. So the customer journey links the various phases and interactions across the life cycle, all the way from having a want to using the product, to procuring the product, using the product, changing the product, maintaining the product, having multiple interactions with the company, and finally recommending the product, and driving that journey and experience from the eyes of the customer in the best possible way, in the most delightfully delivered experience, and something like a journey that is represented by the gold arrow, the gold lines, and not one that's represented by the gray lines, right? It's very easy in the complex interaction and the complex journey for one bad experience to take the journey in a different direction. But that's really what digital transformation is, to enable the confluence of technology, processes, and people to drive the best experience for the customer and do that at scale. So let's take a little a few moments to talk about customer centricity, right? And what that means. So what does it mean to say we're going to build products and customer journeys around the customer? Now that might seem easy to say, but for most businesses that have multiple products, millions of customers, multiple systems that need to participate in delivering a product and customer journey and experiences to the customer across various channels, from digital to retail to affiliate points of distribution, right, to call center for support. There is a need to be able to unify around the customer's needs, wants, problems, and be able to have the most accurate information and be able to understand where the customer is in the journey. Now, that might seem simple, but in a complex landscape that we'll see soon, that can be extremely hard to architect and extremely hard to change, with a lot of scope for error. And as you start to drive transformation, which means we are going to drive that customer experience into the golden path of customer experience, or the golden age of customer experience, we really need for all systems participating in that customer experience to have a consistent view of the customer, if not the identical view of the customer, and where they are in their journey, and be able to drive experiences with that consistent view. So let's take a look at the current landscape and some of the vectors that have evolved systems and architectures over the last 2 decades. Because most organizations and most companies do not have the luxury of starting from a clean sheet of paper, right? We have a lot of investment in systems, processes, and people, and the need is to leverage those investments and continue to make improvements, some incremental and some transformational. So in the early 2000s, a common state of the IT landscape was most business functions were run out of what we call monolithic applications. And these were pretty large, complex applications that had a user interface, had a business logic layer, and a database layer. And all functions of that particular domain of the application, whether it was a billing system or a customer relationship management system or an inventory system, were contained vertically within those 3 layers, approximately 3 layers, right? And any new product or feature or customer experience were implemented inside of those monolithic apps. And you had various different roles that worked waterfall projects to change those systems. In the mid-2000s, the need to increase distribution and continue to rapidly modify those systems led to an architecture that allowed monolithic apps to integrate with external apps outside of the UI, right? It wasn't practical to take a user interface that was built towards one product and embed it in another company's user interface. Let's say, for example, a company wanted to sell product inside of a retail store that didn't belong to them, like a national retailer. So APIs were built that allowed remote apps or third-party applications or user interfaces to also interact with monolithic apps. And there were various architectures that enabled those integration patterns, SOA being one of the popular ones at the time. Prior to SOA, there was EAI. And from those architectural patterns, the enterprise started to spread across not just the core enterprise, but affiliated channels and partners. And from that spread and success of expansion of distribution came more demands to add features and capabilities for customers, right? Being able to deliver unified mobile experiences, unified web experiences, omni-channel experiences started to drive architectures that further started to decompose monolithic applications. And one of the popular architectures that emerged and really started to show up in enterprise stacks in the last 5 to 6 years was microservices. And what microservices did was it was a paradigm shift in how we could, essentially process the change vectors coming at us to add more features and to really take old legacy apps and let them do new things. And one of the reasons microservices allowed us to do that was it allowed us to take the data tier and separate it domain by domain out of the monolithic apps. So we could externalize the data into a microservice, and there are multiple different patterns for microservices, but think about being able to break up the monolith and hence changing the monolith, being able to organize teams along those domain services was possible. Now, those enablers allowed us to start to deliver, multiple ways a customer could interact with the enterprise in fulfilling the customer journey. So in the past, we were primarily limited to web applications and external thick clients that ran on point of sale systems. And now we could start to add more integration points. So you start to see customers interact with an application over text messages or over chat channels and voice channels, all enabled by this domain-oriented microservices design, right? So that starts to enrich the customer experience. And with that, we started to drive more customer experience APIs, having experiences that resided in a separate microservice or service layer that dealt with innovation and digital product delivery. And in order to maintain state, we built process APIs. So where a single interaction needed to flow through multiple phases of a journey, we made it easy for the customer and allowed them to enter the minimal amount of data through process APIs that composed various stateless service endpoints into a flow that had a recognition of state and session and context, right? And developer portals enabled multiple teams to work together to drive those experiences. Right? The way we leveraged our investment in legacy technology was through system APIs that served as adapter layers to core systems in the back end, which largely still were complex enough and there was enough investment and risk of making changes that we kept them in place, but we abstracted them with several layers of the stack above them, right? So again, there was another evolutionary shift in the capabilities we could build on top of systems that some of them have been around for 20 plus years. So we're at the point where we've largely got the ability to add new features rapidly through this microservices architecture and domain-driven design. We have oriented processes around agile workflows where teams work around product boundaries in rapid iterations. We've got a lot of automated tool chains, and we've started to deploy containers in both private and public cloud, including across hybrid cloud infrastructure to enable massive scale, right? So at this point, we've really now got a lot of capabilities in the enterprise. So what's missing from what we need to drive the innovation in agile transformation, right, and adaptive enterprise? And there are two very, very important capabilities that are missing. And those capabilities, when embedded into the modern service-oriented, microservice-oriented enterprise stack, is what I call the digitally meshed enterprise. And the digitally meshed enterprise, if you step back and look down on it from 1,000 feet, is an enterprise where people, processes, and technology come together to build products that customers love. And those products know the customer journey and adapt to the customer proactively in real time, right? Those journeys and use of products put out data that can be mined and processed by algorithms. And then those algorithms and that analytics, whether you're using whatever analytical capability, all the way from analytics to artificial intelligence, you can start to drive improvements in that customer journey by removing friction points and also improving outcomes. So walking through the stack, as you see it here, you see a representative customer journey. And the people in the digitally meshed enterprise are oriented around delivering the best experience for a product at every phase of the journey. They leverage customer experience services that we saw in the last slide, process services and core services, the modern technology stack. But there are two new capabilities that exist in this stack. The first one is a customer data fabric. Now, you may think I'm taking you back 20 years where all the data was together, but this is not your dad or mom's data fabric. This is a truly hybrid analytical data fabric that allows microservices to do what they do best, which is abstract data and services on top of that abstraction, but also allow a unified or 360-degree view of all of the relevant data required to drive a customer journey. So think of a data layer that spans geographies, that may span private and public cloud, a truly hybrid fabric where all data relevant to an enterprise resides in real time in a highly coherent, contextualized manner with one semantical model that can be interpreted by all services that leverage that data. Now, those services could be services that directly interface with the customer, or they could be services that are analytical services that are processing routes a customer is taking and shifting suboptimal routes to optimal routes. So how you do this is on the core system, and this is an architecture that I've personally implemented over 2 decades and 2 separate iterations spanning about 8 years, highly successful architectures, they're real world. You take the core systems and integrate the data from them using change data capture mechanisms, evolving the structure to a semantic model that matches the service representation from your domain-driven design interfaces. And those data sets reside in the customer data fabric and are kept current from the backend through real-time change data capture integration, typically in sub 10 millisecond timeframes. I'm sorry, sub 10 second timeframes. Now, the enterprise event fabric really carries the events or the causes of changes or creation of data. think about it as the digital nervous system of your enterprise. So when a customer takes any actions, whether they visit a site and are looking up their balance or they order a product, not only does the service integrating with the customer or interfacing with the customer know about that interaction, but that service broadcasts that interaction over an enterprise event fabric. So any other service that can participate in that activity, that can add other actors to improve the experience, can do that in real time. And similar to the customer data fabric, this event fabric spans geographies and it spans private and public clouds. The power of an enterprise event fabric is you can then start to layer capabilities that you didn't even know you needed. So for example, you may start off by building a process flow that enables a customer to make monthly payments for their bill. And at the time you built it, you don't realize that there is a pattern by which some customers really get shut off from their service, right? And the reason is that they haven't renewed. But over time, as you're analyzing the data, you realize that during a certain period of time, your site or there are problems actually receiving a payment. And those problems might not be solvable in your architecture because either it requires a partner to have an availability that they just can't meet, or have certain legacy systems to be available, and the investment in time required for that is significant. So what you could end up doing if you had an enterprise event fabric is you could listen to that event where a customer comes to your site to attempt to make a payment. You would see that failure, and perhaps your option would be to extend service for a few days while communicating with the customer that you know that they attempted to make a payment, right? So that's what I call a future capability that you did not know you needed when you initially architected a product and a customer experience. So that's one, but you can also, as a company, build this architecture that adapts to future products, right? So for example, let's assume that you're a company that sells furniture in a disassembled condition, and your customers are used to purchasing your furniture from your site, receiving delivery and putting it together. And that's the extent of your business when you built your service. Now, fast forward a few months and your company realizes that there is enough friction and enough value in creating a service that dispatches people to help a customer assemble the product, and there's a market for it. So how would you enable a customer that buys a product that has significant complexity to also be able to go out and schedule another service to come out and assemble the product they purchased from you? Well, you could take the route we've always taken. We start to change our checkout service or our order confirmation service to also display new pages, right? Now, that's a valid architecture. You could do that. That requires you to change things. That might impact other services, right? And then because you have now created a monolith of two services together, every time each service evolves, it drives more change. And that's talking at the technology level. We haven't even spoken about people and organizations that may need to come together to drive the fusion of requirements to achieve those two products combining. With the digitally meshed enterprise, you do not need to heavy lift the teams and move them together or get them to work in new ways. The product team that is responsible for putting together the furniture that the customer bought could continue to evolve on their own systems if they received and subscribed to events coming off your enterprise event fabric. And if they needed to have an understanding of the customer and products the customer has bought, including the customer history, it would be available in the customer data fabric. So without changing existing systems and impacting a business that has been successful for years, delivering customer experiences and journeys for years and risking that entire business line, changing priorities in a backlog for delivering product A to be able to support product B, an enterprise event fabric and a customer data fabric allow you to bring in a new product through either acquisition or creation by the company that is synergistic. So in a way, you expand your digital nervous system and you expand your view of the customer to this new product. So there are multiple use cases, and really what I would like to point out here is I did start off by talking about creating innovative and adaptive architectures for digitization. And one of the benefits of both the customer data fabric and the customer event fabric is by the nature of it being decoupled from your core business, but still knowing everything that happened both from a data and event perspective, allows you to drive innovation and adaptation at scale. And the thing about scale is it reduces complexity, because as we all know, it is simplicity that scales and it's complexity that fails. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate talking to you today.